Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Malta 5. My name's JD, and today we're going to be playing some Modern with one of my favorite Modern decks of all time, a classic, Soul Sisters. This was my go-to deck for a while back in the day. This is one of my favorites, and we just recently got some interesting new cards that fit pretty well into the deck, so we'll see if it can boost it up a little bit. It's always been kind of there on the fringes of Modern, never tier 1, but maybe with these new additions we can steal some wins. So I guess we'll start with the new fun stuff. Theros Beyond Death just came out recently. Most of you are probably aware of this combo. Heliod, the new Heliod Sun Crowned, combos infinitely with Walking Ballista. It's a deterministic infinite damage, infinite life gain combo. So I figured, why not toss it into Soul Sisters? It fits pretty well. The way it works, Heliod says whenever you gain life, you put a +1/+1 counter on any creature you control. And you can also, second ability, you can give any creature lifelink. So the creature we want is Walking Ballista. Now, you use Heliod to give it lifelink. Now, as long as Walking Ballista has at least 2 counters on it, it can't just have 1, otherwise it'll die when you remove the counter. But with at least 2 counters on a Walking Ballista, you give it lifelink, you then remove a counter, its second ability, to deal 1 damage to any target, probably the opponent's face. And because it has lifelink, when you deal that 1 damage, you gain a life. And again, Heliod says, whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. So then we put the counter right back on Walking Ballista, and you can do it over and over again infinitely. You can do as infinite damage to your opponent's face while gaining infinite life at the same time. So, instant kill combo. It's a little fragile, obviously, but it's only a 2-card combo. Infinite. A deterministic kill, why not toss it in there? Soul Sisters is very good at stabilizing with all the life gain. You can kind of draw out games pretty long. So I feel like we can hopefully get to the point where we have enough time to actually find these pieces and put it together and give it a shot. If the game is stalled out, we just have a combo in our back pocket to win us the game. So that's the new fun one. I'm sure, it's... Theros Beyond Death just came out. Everyone is aware of this combo. Everyone else is messing around with it. But, so yeah, decided to do it, play with it myself, throw it into Soul Sisters. The other newish card that we have is Ajani Strength of the Pride from M20. 4 mana Planeswalker. This guy's pretty cool. He tops off our curve for sure. It's the only 4-drop we have. But, pretty sweet. You gain life equal to the number of creatures you control, plus Planeswalkers you control with his +1, so he's gained you a bunch of life. He spits out Ajani's Pridemates with his minus ability, and we'll talk about Ajani's Pridemate in a minute, which is pretty powerful. And then his 0 ability is a one-sided board wipe. If you have at least 15 life more than your starting totals, if you have 35 life or more, exile each artifact and creature your opponents control. Pretty sweet. So he seems like a really, really fun addition, so I threw in a couple. Other than that, thinking of new things since I used to play back in the day, Ranger Captain is fairly new out in Modern Horizons. It's a slightly different version of Ranger of Eos. Just a regular Ranger of Eos was the original one, which is a 4-drop and a 3/2 body, so a little more expensive and a little skinnier butt. The original Ranger fetched out 2 1-drops, though. Whereas this guy, he's a little cheaper, a little beefier booty. He only gets you 1 creature, though. However, his second ability is pretty good, too. You can sacrifice him, and your opponent can't cast non-creature spells this turn. So I feel like this particular Ranger of Eos, is a little bit better than the original in this build. Because we're trying to pull off this Heliod Walking Ballista combo, Ranger Captain searches up the Ballista, because it has technically 0 converted mana cost. So he can search up the Ballista, and then he can also protect the combo with his second ability. So When the turn you're ready to go off with your combo, you just sack him to kick it off. Your opponent can't cast kill spells in response. Your opponent can't cast counter spells. So he does two things. He fetches the ballista and he protects the combo when we're trying to go off. So he's a 4 of, seems pretty good. And so I decided to use him instead of the original because he has a lower mana cost. I tried to keep the curve pretty low to the ground so we can run just 20 lands. Some lists recently I've seen have like Archangel of Thune and some higher cost things, but then you got to run 21, 22 lands, even maybe more. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of keep this nice and low curve, low to the ground. I think that's it for new stuff. If you're familiar with Soul Sisters at all, the rest of it is pretty standard. I'll run through it real quick. Castle's a new one from Throne of Eldraine. It's a 1 of. Why not? It's pretty low risk to running. If the game's going long, we have nothing to do, we can spit out tokens. And those tokens entering the battlefield will trigger our Soul Sisters, which we'll talk about in a minute. Flagstones is a 4 of. There's literally no downside to running it. It is legendary, but when it's put into the graveyard from the battlefield, from the legendary rule, it replaces itself with a plane. So you're really not losing anything. And it allows you to run Ghost Quarter as a utility land with 0 downside. Running a few Ghost Quarters isn't super risky anyway. It's a good utility land. It can kill Tron lands, etc. But say we're stuck and we need double white. You can Ghost Quarter your own Flagstones, and then from the Ghost Quarter trigger and the Flagstones trigger, you can fetch up 2 planes, so you can get your double white mana. So that's a fun little trick. So these two in combination work really well. Mistveil Plains is a 1 of. It works really well with Squadron Hawk. It does come into play tapped, so that's why I only have 1. But you can basically infinitely loop Squadron Hawks with this. So if your Squadron Hawk dies, ends up in the graveyard, you can put it in the bottom of your library, and then when you play your next Squadron Hawk, you have another one to fetch out. So as long as you keep one in your hand at all times to fetch the next one, you can kind of keep looping them forever, which is, I mean, that's pretty powerful. They're just little 1/1 flyers, but it's good card advantage. You can just have a steady stream of chump blockers or whatever. So we get a 1 of Mistveil Plains. The rest are just basic plains. So that's the mana base. Martyr Sands, again, works well with Squadron Hawk. Squadron Hawk can fill up your hand with white cards to maximize Martyr of Sands' ability, which she sacks herself to gain 3 times X life, where X is the number of white cards in your hand. We're a mono white deck, so usually this is going to gain us at least, 12 life, hopefully 9, 12 life, something like that, which is pretty good. Martyr works really well with Ajani, getting us to that 35 life, so you can use his 0 ability. So those two work together. Lots of good synergies in this deck. Path to Exile needs no explanation. It's just creature interaction. I only have 2 in the main board. I feel like we're trying to kind of do our own thing. Like we have our own game plan. I wanted to make a lot of room for that. So I have the other 2 in the sideboard if we need it. If we're playing against a deck that has some big creature threats that we really want to deal with, we can go up to the full 4 path. I only have 2 in the main board though. I think we want to focus on our own game plan more. Serra Ascendant, again, works really well with Martyr. You need 30 or more life to make it a 6/6 flying lifelink, which is a really big threat for 1 mana. So Martyr helps us get there. Serra Ascendant is pretty powerful. Our sisters, the Soul Warden and Soul's Attendant. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you're gaining life. The other sister would be the Auriok Champion, which costs 2 instead of just 1, but it has protection from black and red, which can be useful. The other 2 are in the sideboard. In case we're up against a black and or red deck, we can bring in more. Johnny's Pridemate. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on him. So there's going to be lots of life gain triggers in this deck. So this guy can get pretty beefy for 2 mana. It's kind of like our own mini little Tarmogoyf. And yeah, Johnny's Strength of the Pride with his -2 ability just makes more of those, more Ajani's Pridemates. Pretty powerful. Squadron Hawk we talked about, fetches more of itself out of the deck. Auriok Champion we talked about. Spectral Procession. In our deck, being mono white, this will always just cost 3 mana. Hopefully. So 3 mana for 3 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying. It's pretty good. That's 3 triggers for our Soul Sisters. They're evasive. They get pumped up. Heliod can start putting counters on them, start making them into real threats. So Spectral Procession is pretty solid. Ballista we talked about. I think that basically covers the main board. Soul Sisters is kind of a classic, so I feel like you guys have the gist of it, I'm sure. Sideboard, we got the other 2 paths. We got the other 2 Auriok Champions. Damping Sphere for Tron and for Storm. Rest in Peace for Graveyard Strategies. Stony Silence for Artifact Strategies. Tron. Nevermore against combo decks, that sort of thing. If there's one specific card we don't want them casting. That's what that's in there for. And that's pretty much it. Good old classic Soul Sisters. I'm excited to give it another run. This was a favorite of mine. So we'll see what the new cards can do for the deck, and I'll see you guys in the gameplay. Thank you for watching.